I would like to take this opportunity to step away from all of the high school debate we have been experiencing and summarize back down to the resolution what exactly it is that we are hunting for in these last two speeches. We are hunting for whether or not Keynesian economics has failed. So, for this reason, I would like to step back from all of the arguments that we have been making and go back to an example that my partner brought up in her last speech. That is that economists say that the recession would be worse without bailout and stimulus money having been spent. The bailout and the stimulus package were both examples of Keynesian spending. The most recent examples of Keynesian spending, and the most important to today's round, because we are asking whether or not it has failed today as it stands, because they did not challenge our burden that they need to prove that is a total systemic failure today. So what the debate stands at right now is that the question is whether or not these economists are right, which, to the extent of our abilities to determine as high school debaters, they are in all means correct in their field of expertise. That the economy would right now be worse, that the recession would be deeper, that unemployment would be higher, and that we would be worse off today were it not for the Keynesian economic spending that we have done in response to the recession that we have entered into within the past 2 years. So, seeing as this is our fundamental argument of today's round, I would like to go through a little bit and go back to the definitions brought up at the very start of today's debate and show what it is that the opposition needs to prove to win. My opponent stated that for us to win, we need to prove that Keynesian economics has not failed, that we have an equal burden to prove ourselves in today's round. And we do agree. So how is it that we prove that they have not failed? They define failure as Keynesian economics not experiencing success. Well, then we need to go back to what they define Keynesian economics as. They define Keynesian economics as spending and monetary policy for the purpose of offsetting. This is the key word. They said they want to offset recessions. So what we need to prove to win is that Keynesian economics has significantly offset the recession that we are experiencing today. Which brings me back to the example that I brought up just a few moments ago. That economists, the leading economists on the United States economy, state themselves that they believe that without the Keynesian spending that we have done, we would be in a worse place. So under the burden presented to the opposition team by the proposition, we are meeting this standard because we have shown to you, Judge, that without Keynesian economic spending, without Keynesian economic policy, we would not have offset this recession. We would not have impacted the recession. We would not have changed it in any way, shape, or form. What we are trying to prove now is that offsetting the recession, that by decreasing the impact to the American citizen, Keynesian economics has succeeded. Which is why I would like to present my one and only voting issue for my speech today. And that is that offset does not mean prevent entirely. When you offset something, you do not take it out of existence. By offsetting a recession, we do not mean that the recession will never happen. Even in agrarian societies, before we had massive economies, only small, tiny, primitive economies, there were still booms and busts. They are unavoidable. They are a fact of life. So the question is whether or not we can lessen the impact of these booms and busts. Can we lessen the impact to the citizen of the bust? And that is our burden as the opposition today, which is why I would like to urge that through our argumentation today, we have shown that Keynesian economic spending, regardless of whether or not regulatory policy has played a role in it, regardless of any of those other arguments, if Keynesian economic spending in the most recent recession has been successful in offsetting the impact of that, in lessening the impact to the citizens, then we ought to win today's debate. Which is why I would like to urge that for the reason that economists say that Keynesian economics has not failed, that it has served its purpose, and that these are the burdens laid out to the opposition by the proposition team from the beginning of today's debate, I urge a vote in favor of the opposition team. Thank you.
Okay, it's been a great debate. Now, I'm going to dive right in. The motion that we have been debating this entire time is Keynesian economics has failed. Judge, I have 3 voters for you today, and that goes over why Keynesian economics has failed. Now, I'd like to quickly apologize for the fact that this debate has really come down to a matter of terminology. But I'm going to go right in quickly and try and clear that up for you. Now, first one is about the burdens that were originally placed on both teams. Now, as originally accepted by the opposition team, we said that they must uphold the other side of the motion, being that Keynesian economics has been a success, and they did accept this burden. However, their entire case revolves around, because we didn't implement Keynesian economics in this specific way, suddenly a large recession happened. Because we took off regulations, which originally were Keynesian economic related, a huge recession happened. This is not upholding their burden of that Keynesian economics is successful. And that is why they have failed to uphold this version, and that is one major reason why the proposition team has already won this debate. Now, the second is that our second voter is that the opposition team has been operating under a specific version of Keynesian economics called counter-cycling. Now, that we've been asked to find in the very beginning what Keynesian economics was that the use of government stimulus and monetary policy to stimulate demand and offset recessions. This is what Keynesian economics is, and it was defined and used throughout the debate. And yet, all of their case is operating under the specific version that only specific stimulus money going into the economy counts as Keynesian economics. But this is not true. Any money that is being put into the economy, that is being put to help the consumer, help the American citizen, does, in fact, is related to Keynesian economics. And is that is proven that, in fact, Keynesian economics has failed recently and in the past, because all of this money has not offset or prevented recessions. Now, I'm going on to the third and final order, which is the most important of my entire speech, of this debate. And that is about, in fact, their voter and the argument they are using as to why they have won. Let me lay out what they have said in their last speech. Keynesian economics has not failed because the stimulus has allowed banks to post profits, their entire case. And since these banks post profit, the recession has been offset. This is ridiculous. So, because these banks have gained a little bit of profit, suddenly the entire worst recession of the entire US history has suddenly been offset, is suddenly not as bad. When they do, I reference that offsetting they define as decreasing a negative impact to the United States citizen, which they said in their last speech. And yet, their entire argument is about banks getting profit from it, not completely failing. Keep that in mind as I take their first and last POI.
Judge, I would like to emphasize at this point that in my final speech, I did not make an emphasis on the bank's status, rather the economic status of the United States and the status of our recession and the impact to the citizens therein. Thank you.
That's good, because I'm now going to go on to the direct impact of the American citizen that the most recent, the worst recession we have had, has had. And yet, maybe the banks didn't all completely fail and did get profit coming out of it. However, unemployment has been at an all-time low, along with consumer confidence, which plays a large and most significant part in the economy. And that is why, Judge, Keynesian economics has failed, because in the most recent recession, along with the others, its point is to offset recessions by putting stimulus and monitoring policy of the economy, putting money into the economy to prevent offset recessions. And this has not happened. This has not worked. Because unemployment rate has been at an all-time low. The American citizen directly is affected because Keynesian economics has failed. And that is why, Judge, I urge a vote for the proposition team, because the opposition team failed to uphold their verdict and have been operating under a specific version of Keynesian economics. They do not grasp the full understanding of it, and their entire case has made it ridiculous. It is not directly related to Keynesian economics at all. Thank you.